Okay, we'll call the meeting to order.
We're on?
Not yet.
Is Mark not here?
No,
No,
it's absent.
So, well, we're
We're
late.
not there yet.
That was not, that's Mr. Postbot's fault.
Yes.
Yes.
This week's left at 26%.
Right, we're on.
Did it work? Okay.
Oh, yeah,
Call the meeting to order at 6:01. All board members are present with the exception of Mark, who is out sick. First up is review and approval of the September 12th public meeting minutes. Does anyone-
Motion to approve the September 12th public meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Discussion. Okay. All those in favor of approval of the September 12th public meeting minutes as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, I'm abstaining. Greta?
Okay.
I was not good. So, date and location of the next meeting is October 10th at Canterbury Elementary School.
So we had talked last meeting about potentially moving that to a different day of the week, but we discussed it as Canterbury School Board members, and we actually want to attend the November session instead. So we would ask if we could move the November 14th date, so we can discuss that later on. But I know everyone is expecting that conversation tonight.
Okay.
We're on for the 10th.
We're on for the 10th. Okay, next up is public communication and correspondence. Are there any members of the public who would like to talk to the board? Anyone? Okay. Seeing none? Next up, meeting with the Belmont Town Officials, I believe. Come on, I think we made space at the table for you.
Oh, you want us to come sit up there?
Of course.
Absolutely.
The middle school is calling me.
Yeah, there's an
Yes.
event going on tomorrow night.
It's about the cybersecurity thing on Thursday.
It's not an emergency.
Oh, cute, okay. Evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Here, Sharon, I'll leave you with the red.
So, welcome, we want to do some introductions.
Sharon, so I get to go first?
Yeah.
So, I am Sharon Champy, I am a select board member.
Karen Sindor, I'm the town planner.
Travis O'Hare, select board member.
And Ruth Mooney, select board member.
Okay.
Jill Smith from Belmont.
Alice Todd from Canterbury.
Randy Johnson from Canterbury.
Jeff Robertson, Belmont. Sean Embry, Belmont resident.
Michelle Lewis from Canterbury.
Superintendent.
Debbie Thompson, superintendent. Business administrator. He just thinks he is.
Did I?
Self-promotion. Yeah.
Brenda Olson-Wilder, School Board Secretary.
Great. So thank you for coming. I know, I think we were all asked to think about and come up with questions, and I know you all sent over some questions to Michael as well.
We received the ones from you, Travis, so.
Okay. All right, so, but since you're here, do we want to start with your question?
Yeah, they're probably worded way better on the email. She worded them for me, I sent them via text.
Oh, let's see. Well, it's okay. What,
Just go.
just go
So
ahead.
the first part was about the future budgeting for the school board,
Okay.
about some way that, so we've been asked a lot as select board members about the taxes in the town and the impact. So, and a lot of the portion, it does come from the school, so that would be our first place to look, I thought. And then the other part was about, I think it was something about the academics and extracurricular, like communicating them to the parents better, because it's something that we've heard on the withdrawal committee a lot about.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah, so you gave some background about fiscal responsibility, and you study numbers, I've learned, you're an accountant. So you did say, yeah, what's our plan to rein in the cost for the school district? And you said Shaker is $10.95 per 1,000, and the county average is $8.20 per 1,000. So is that for Belmont? Is that for Shaker in totality?
Gives Shaker, Belmont's portion of Shaker.
Okay. So,
I'll jump in a little bit. I mean, as a Belmont resident, like, I definitely get the concern. I'm paying it, I'm seeing it in my taxes at my home. I think one of the frustrations that I have as a board member, or one of the difficulties is, we're talking, I forget, Debbie, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the percentage of our budget that's salary and benefits is it close to 80%?
Close to 80%.
And so, when it comes to budget time, we could talk about pencils and paper so much, but it's such a small portion. What we have to have are those difficult discussions. We had, I think we touched on them last year, we talked about support staff positions that are basically that were vacant at the time that we decided not to put in the budget this year. If we're going to do anything more, it's going to come at the hands of salary and benefits, I think.
So union
That's the
negotiations.
difficult part, because now you're affecting, in theory, the quality of the education, because you're talking about how, you know, what classes you're gonna be offering, how many teachers, what's the teacher to pupil ratio. That's difficult. We've seen some declines in enrollment, but it's not like we have this big pocket here where we can say, oh, let's cut a position here. It's just a little bit at every grade level. But that's a discussion we're going to have in the next couple of months.
Where's your union at this point? Are you in the middle of a 3-year contract? Where are you as far
No,
as?
but we do have a transportation contract.
Mhm.
it was
So you
just-
have no union
No, no,
contract?
we
We're in the
do.
first
Well,
year
yeah,
of
we're
a
in the first year
4-year
of a
four-year
contract.
contract.
The
Okay,
first
Yeah,
year
that
of a
was passed
4-year
last year.
contract.
Yeah, so we got a few
Yeah.
years for that.
Okay.
But the issue isn't, for me, so much about the contract itself, it's, we would have to cut personnel. So regardless of the contract, in order to bring down budgets, which is why we ended up cutting, 5 support staff positions that were vacant, we'd have to cut personnel. But yes, we're at first year of a 4-year.
Sort of the same pickle on the select board.
Of course.
So I have a question. So I've heard a lot of Belmont residents talking about how they're being reassessed. And
sure.
like, for the second year in a row.
They voted that.
Okay, so that was something they voted for.
Actually, it was on the
Article
ballot,
29.
and this is the, let me see, I have to get my dates, now this is 2023, so 2024 is actually our 5-year required reassessment anyways, that's by law, all right? And actually, to be honest with you, it was to everyone's advantage, because let's just say you live in Belmont, and 4 years ago, you had a house that was assessed at $250,000, okay? Today, in today's world, because of how much the sales have increased, that home is now valued at, let's say, $850,000, okay? That's where it's assessed at. And unfortunately, if you're a person that was, there's 2 ways of looking at it. If you want to buy a home right now in Belmont, and it's assessed at $850,000, you're gonna get your loan for that, because that's what the homes are selling for, that's the assessed values, okay? But again, 2 years from now, if we do not continue to have spot assessments, that home might be valued, let's just say, at $500,000, but you just paid $800,000 for it, no one's going to be able to get a loan for that particular home because of that big change. And again, we don't know if that's gonna happen, but what we're trying to do is, we needed to come up to 100% assessment, and we're still not there yet. I think we're at, what was it, I can't remember, I'm gonna say the low 90s maybe?
say
And don't quote me for that, but we're somewhere in the low 90s, so we still have not come to 100% assessment, and that's required by state.
Before the first assessment was done, when it was determined that we needed to do it and put it on the ballot, and it's not me, cause I wasn't there,
Right,
it was 66%.
that's
So
why we
were
put,
only
that's,
being taxed
right.
at 66% of our assessed value by what the DRA says the town is.
So we had to get that on the ballot. Thankfully, it passed, and it was it for 2 or 3 years? 3. It was 3 years, and now next year we go into the 5th year, which is a full assessment. And in reality, again, not knowing what the economy's gonna do, okay? But if we don't continue to have spots, if you lived in town, you could be paying and being assessed for $850,000, but your house is only worth $500,000. So we're trying to stay with the, with the economy, I guess. It's, but that's why.
So the townspeople voted for it,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but probably because they didn't vote for it fairly recently, they've forgotten.
3 years ago.
They did.
No, it was.
Well,
It would've been 4
it
years
was-
ago. 'cause
3,
it
4
happened,
years
yeah.
ago, that's right.
Well, the original was, but the appropriation for it has been on the ballot every year, because in 2023, it was article number 29.
Yeah, you have to appropriate the funds to cover that spot assessment, that spot reval. Mhm.
That's true.
Oh, a lot of people are, we received a letter from, 106,
120.
100 and something 20 signatures from people who own property on the lake complaining what their assessments went for. But the problem is, we've seen that on Lake Winnipesaukee. You've got the camp, right, that sold for $500,000 that they tore down, and then they built the $2-3 million home on it. And I can't understand why their taxes are.
But it's also happening to our trailer parks. I mean, they got hit hard this year for the reassessment.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband and I built our manufactured home community in Laconia and Belmont. And we thought we were rolling in the dough because we were selling homes for $60,000, $80,000. Those homes, 20 years later, are selling for over $250,000. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it has nothing to do with us, per se. We're the ones that get blamed for it, of course. But it's not us, it's, I had one lady say, why is my home so expensive? Well, your neighbor just sold the exact same property for whatever the amount is. That's why your assessment's going up. So, but it was something that the taxpayers voted on.
I think the other thing, not about assessments, but related to the budget is, our revenues are down from the state, and so and correct me if I'm not saying this in the right way, but the state is giving us less, which means then of course it goes on to the local, so even as we are keeping spending low, it impacts the tax rate because revenues are lower. So, I mean, I'm sure it's exactly similar to what, not exactly, but it's similar to what you're facing, so just know that, we were dealing with the same thing last year, trying to keep it a budget that meets the needs of the students but doesn't break the bank. But depending on assessment values and, like, we had the teacher contract last year and you all had, I think, was it the police officer?
All 3 of our unions.
Yeah, so-
All 3 of our unions, which is,
Fire, police, and DPW.
it's not gonna be pretty because we're probably gonna have to open them.
You're gonna have to what?
Open negotiations
Open
again.
negotiations. Because we're so, unfortunately, the way the budget works in Belmont, we go through the budget process and then everybody else in surrounding towns go through their budget process. So we get, say we're paying somebody $30 an hour, they know that, they're gonna pay them $35.
Their union does.
Yeah,
so
it's and we have vacancies. I think the only department in the town of Belmont that doesn't have a vacancy is our highway department. So, and we have lots of vacancies. Wish your
I would
roads would
say
be
I feel
plowed.
bad, but
Roads are replowed.
we've dealt with the same thing in the school district, like
It's everywhere, it's,
We're all in the same.
We're all in the same
We're
boat.
all in the same boat, and we're to blame, you know. We don't know how to, we're the bad guys. Yeah, it's brutal.
I think the other question you had was around, like you said, extracurricular activities, high placement classes such as honors and AP. So how can we make sure parents know about the options that are out there, that are already there?
yeah, cause I'm on the withdrawal committee, and that's
Yeah.
something that we hear a lot about from the parents, especially that, we sent the surveys out, and that was probably one of the biggest factors on
Yeah.
there.
Is to,
I think to get to that point, I think it's a PR issue. Like we need to up our public relations when it comes to advertising the great things that are going on in our district. We have a really high presence on social media where we post a lot of the great things that are happening in the district, particularly on Facebook. Even the successes of our alumni, we've been trying to pull those in, those that are making dean's lists, those that are being successful out in the workforce and so forth. So we have a lot of students that are very successful coming out of our school district, and we could always get better at advertising the opportunities that are in our district around AP courses and so forth. You're really not gonna know that unless you're a parent coming into, or a current parent or guardian of a student in the high school, because you're looking at the program of studies, and the program of studies outlines all of those AP offers, which are, we have several AP offerings, but that's not something we widely advertise. Like, hey, these are all the AP courses we have in our school district, because it's applicable to those that are coming into the system to access that. I think we do a better job with our middle school families, making sure that they understand what the opportunities are available at the high school. And as an extracurricular, we could do the same thing. So there's always room for improvement there by all means.
And it is, I mean, we'll advertise, do everything by the book that you're supposed to do to have a meeting for something, public hearing for whatever. And you just, no matter what, you get creamed on Facebook because we didn't do enough of it, or we didn't do it the right way, or, you know, it's a uphill battle. It doesn't matter what you do, you know, and the sad part about some of that is they're not even residents. They don't even live in Belmont, or they don't live in Canterbury, they live elsewhere, but they come in and just
stir the pot.
stir the pot. That's a hard thing to overcome. Huh? I know, you don't use it, and you don't answer your
Right
phone.
while you're there, Charlie.
So I did want to touch on the second part of that question about how can Shaker add more activities to attract different types of kids? I think that's what was written.
Yeah.
I never got the impression we had any problems creating clubs or groups or anything like that. Now, if somebody wants to start a cheerleading team and there's 3 kids that want to do it, I don't know if that team's going to get up off the ground, you know? So I think one of the problems in a district the size of ours is there's only so many kids to go around. And, I mean, we have, you know, a co-op with Guilford for football. And I think our enrollment in that increased this year a little bit, but historically it's been not that large. So it's a great opportunity, but we need that cooperation from another district to provide that football team. That has been difficult to come by, you know, in that particular sport. But if somebody wants to start, you know, a chess club or something, I don't see, other than probably getting an adult to run it, that's probably the most difficult thing. But typically if it runs for a couple years, we end up getting it added to the Appendix B. We look at clubs that aren't running, and we decide not to fund, you know, that club because it's not running. We're not gonna set aside money for that stipend. And we could move that stipend to, you know, an additional club that gets started.
Well, I'm thinking, I wonder if kids do understand that they could start their own clubs that way.
I'm not sure that they do. I would agree with you. So I think we could talk about the different opportunities that are out there, cause they always start, if they were to start a club and they have an advisor in their interest, they meet with the principal, form that club, or any other extracurricular, and then, it would come to us as a charter once it's signed off. And what that means is the advisor's not getting a stipend for it initially, so it's kind of to test the waters that you've been in existence. Otherwise, we would be constantly paying stipends for not necessarily established clubs or extracurriculars. So then we have, as Sean described, a whole process of an Appendix B committee from the board and representatives from the different schools to look at where are all of our clubs and extracurriculars, and then we make recommendations to the board on adding or subtracting or movement. I think the one thing from my lens that's harder is when it comes to sports. And I'll use lacrosse as an example, because my son was a lacrosse player in middle school. Obviously, it was a club team because we don't have it, and we actually do technically have varsity lacrosse in our Appendix B. But the entire time I've been in the district as a parent with kids old enough to even look to that, they've never been able to field a varsity team. They did for a couple of years, but then the athletic director would try to get kids to come out who were interested, and they'd get 3 kids.
Is that something that could be looking at being co-opted out though, like with Guilford or someone? I know it's probably hard, but is that something that's possible though?
The possibilities are, I'll answer that question.
Yeah.
You know, the possibilities are there. The challenge with establishing a co-op is that the let's say Guilford or Franklin or any of the districts in the region already have an established team. If they were to take on Belmont as a cooperative, according to NHIAA, the division that they're placed in is based on the total enrollment of both schools.
Got it.
So usually, let's say, I take Franklin, for example, in Division III, if they were to take on our kids for a co-op football team, because we explored this because this is the last year we're co-op with Guilford, it would bump Franklin into a Division II based on the total enrollment. So that's the challenge. Districts aren't willing to take on co-ops because it bumps them.
Well, and I thought that was the issue. I'm surprised to hear that Belmont is part of Guilford, because I thought that was null and void.
We got another year out of it.
Okay, and is that the same reason, because it's bumping them to a different division?
Yeah, Guilford's petitioning NHIA to go down a division, because we're currently in Division II as Belmont Guilford, and they want to be in Division III.
Oh, really?
They have nothing to lose, they might as well take the Belmont
So-
High School kids back.
Sure.
Which is interesting, because this year we have our highest number at 13 Belmont
Really?
players.
Yeah.
So, and just for reference, I know we're referencing Appendix B. Appendix B is in our collective bargaining agreement, and that outlines all of our co-curricular stipends throughout the district.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Any questions?
So the only comment I had was, I know we're talking as a school district about a strategic plan, renewing our strategic plan. And we're talking about getting parents involved and students involved, and I do think it's important if we can get the towns of Canterbury and Belmont involved as well. You know, getting a representative. I don't know what the format's gonna look like, whether we're gonna have, you know, open sessions and, you know, led sessions, but I think it would be good to kind of have the towns involved with the schools at the same time.
And also, on really the budget question, like how we could potentially look at our budget. If you pay attention to our budget development process in general, and you know, now we're live streaming our meetings. We have a parent that is recording our meetings as well. We do go through that budget with a fine-tooth comb. And just as Sean was talking about, you know, salaries and benefits are the major driver there. I believe, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, our school portion actually went down $3. So we are making efforts to bring that tax rate down on the school portion, and we've also been tapping heavily into grants. The 3 rounds of ESSER monies, we use those monies as well as additional adequacy that came to the school district to fund the 2 new classroom addition at Belmont Elementary School. We did not go back to the taxpayers asking for money to put that addition on. So we're doing whatever we can to make sure we're accessing grant monies in order to not have to go to the voters and ask for an increase in the budget to get things done. We've replaced all of the interactive whiteboards in our district, every one of them, through grant monies. And that was part of our replacement cycle on our CIP that had monies out of the operating budget that were earmarked for that. So we're trying every year just to tap into additional monies outside of the operating budget to get things done that we want to get done.
Well, I will say last night I learned more from you and Debbie about the funding and grants than before I asked that question.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, dang.
Yeah.
But again, you know, and we as a town are doing the same thing.
Right.
I mean, we're applying for grants all the
Right.
time. I mean, it's just, you know, it's.
What are some of the things going on in Belmont related to your budget development that we should also be aware of?
Salary.
Salaries,
Okay.
yeah, it's gonna be a shocker, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna be a shocker, and we have no choice. We either compete with everyone locally, or we're going to all be sitting there twiddling our thumbs, I'm afraid, so.
So I have a non-budget question. So as a Canterbury resident, our planning board has been working on our 10-year plan.
Mhm.
And they're talking about development and the future of Canterbury and different housing options. And as I sit there and wonder how they're doing that without discussing impact to schools, it makes me wonder, what does Belmont have? Do you have a 10-year plan? Do you guys have like housing developments?
Interestingly enough, I think that, and again, you people probably know better than we, but we're finding, I feel, don't you, Karen, that a lot of the building is open, what I call open nesters?
There are a lot, to start that, our master plan is something that the planning board just addressed last night at the meeting.
You were across the hall from
Yeah,
us.
they were.
Yes.
I
I know,
should've
we were
stayed.
amazed you
I
were out
should've
before
stayed.
we were.
I left early.
That our master plan has, with all the changes that have been happening in the town of Belmont, and a lot of it happened, as a lot of you are aware, post-COVID. People who had vacation homes up here all of a sudden made them their primary residence. But we are seeing a lot more recently of homes that are, their kids are flown and, you know, grown and flown, and they are now building, as we were talking, the market has gone crazy. I just processed some permits for the property sold on the water for $850,000, and they are literally knocking the home down to build a brand new
Oh, wow.
residence. But it's, you know, are they bringing children into the school system? Most likely not. You know, but that is a very common occurrence lately coming through the office.
And we've had home sales on the lake, unheard of, over $2 million this year.
Unheard of. It was
Yeah,
three.
they're,
Unheard of.
yeah, the
Blue
3
sharks.
3 million.
3 million,
Sharks.
For a condominium.
Yeah, for a
Yeah,
condo.
it's not even on its own land. It's
That's-
in a little.
There
And
are some
that's-
new developments that are up and coming that may be more family-oriented developments in that, over by Westview Drive, the planning board in February did approve a 8-lot subdivision. Those are intended to be, you know, your 2 to 3 bedroom, single-family home.
What about the ones on Dutile?
I was just thinking those
And
are
Dutile
I drove
Road-
by there last week, I can't believe it,
They
this
all say
was a
so,
dirt
like-
road. Yeah,
Yeah, that was an 8-lot subdivision. The subdivision was approved last year, all the plans went, and I believe they are at almost full build-out.
and those were, I believe they started at,
They're selling
These-
between 7 and 850.
that's what I thought, I thought they
And
said.
those are single
Wait, which
Those are
ones are
single
those?
family homes,
Dutile.
Warren and
Yeah,
Dutile,
at the bottom there.
yeah, yeah, right. at
And
the
they're
corner.
beautiful homes,
Okay.
absolutely gorgeous homes. I can't believe it. Yeah.
So is it basically becoming somewhat of a bedroom community, if you will, where people are staying here, they don't have children, they're working out of their homes or their second homes?
I think a
Is that
lot
what
of them
you're
are their
seeing?
homes. I think they're primary homes.
They're,
don't you?
they're becoming their primary
They're
home, and
becoming
because
their-
when COVID happened, a lot of people learned that they could work from home, so they've now.
We get the calls in town hall now, when someone buys a home on a rural road in Belmont, and they would like to know when the street lights are gonna go.
There is a wee bit of culture shock, we do get it.
Yeah.
We need to look for the sidewalks.
A lot of dogs,
Yeah.
a lot of dogs go missing, end up at the Humane Society.
What's the availability of single-family homes currently? Now, I'm not talking about new builds, but homes that are on the market that are single-family homes.
There are not a lot.
No, I think the last time I looked, there was 12 or.
Yeah, there's less than a dozen.
Yeah,
It's a
there
small
were.
number, and the minute they hit the market, they're gone.
Say
For a
that.
high price.
For a
Dutile
high
and
price.
Warren, those are all sold, aren't they?
Yeah, those are all sold.
Yeah.
Those are all sold.
Interesting.
Bidding wars.
Yeah.
Well, there's a house on Union Road for sale, on the Jamestown Road end. It's like, if you go up, it's like the fourth one on the left. And that just went on the market last week. They had an open house Friday, and you couldn't even drive. Yeah, it was like one lane there. I counted about 14 or 15 cars there for an open house.
Well, Dearborn Street comes to mind,
I just thought, yeah.
that the town auctioned off a parcel on Dearborn Street. You couldn't get down Dearborn Street when the auction was going. And that is a single-family home. We did see the permits for that. So there's a few new builds. There's probably less than a dozen that would be available at any given time. And it's fluid, because the minute they hit the market, they're gone.
So from a planning perspective, you're not anticipating single families with children moving into?
There are some small developments. The 8-lot development is some smaller single-family homes. But even some of the ones that have come before the planning board, one did just withdraw, but it was condominiums that would be more 1 and 2 bedroom units, so not a lot of family
Right.
units.
Well, the thing is now, most people aren't having children. 1, 2, maybe? I mean, you,
It's plenty.
there's plenty.
I have two, it's plenty.
But with what we've seen lately, not a mass influx. We don't currently have anything that would say, oh, we're going to have a 40 or 50 lot subdivision that are all single-family homes that you might see,
Right.
40, 50, 60 kids coming into the school system.
Well, I think there's only so much land.
So that's another thing we've seen in Canterbury, is people are getting creative. So they will build ADUs, and then their children and their families will move into the house, and then the parents will move into the ADUs. Have you
Sure.
guys seen an increase of those requests to build as well? Do you have
What's an
ADUs?
ADU?
Accessory dwelling unit.
Accessory additional.
Yeah.
I've seen it in my
That's
personal
your in-laws,
capacity, I mean,
your
I do
in-law
property
Oh, it's
management,
like your
we built
in-law
tons of them.
apartment?
Yeah, mom and
Where you
dad got
turn
a
like
place
your
over the
barn
garage, things
into-
like
My
that.
brother just moved in with me, like it's families are just coming together, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are starting to see more of that. There are some accessory dwelling units that are going in, the same thing, the families are moving into the homes, the parents are moving into a smaller ADU. I have one going before my zoning board. Certain zones in the town require a special exception before you can install an ADU.
We have one tomorrow.
I'm sorry?
There's one on tomorrow's.
That's, yeah, the one tomorrow. We have one tomorrow. A couple more inquiries just regarding ADUs, but we do have a 2-bedroom maximum on the accessory dwelling units. So they, the intent is they are an accessory unit, not to have 2 full homes on one lot, but to have for a parent, or to allow, and with costs these days, to allow a rental. So you could have your family home and then have a small unit to rent out to help supplement your income to maintain that home, to keep that home. But we do minimum 400 square feet, maximum 1,200, so you're talking small units, and they have to be either attached to a house or to a detached accessory unit, like if you have a detached garage, small apartment above.
Yeah. And that's not specific to New Hampshire, that's,
No, that's
that's
yeah.
what's happening across the nation.
That's not.
And go back to Canterbury, because I have two, well, one of them was my sister, and a couple other people that I knew in Canterbury sold their homes, okay? And my sister had a fairly big home, 4 bedrooms, a good big piece of land, but it was a retirement couple that bought it. No kids, retirement. Yeah.
I mean, it would be nice to see families in Belmont, but.
It would be, but it's,
Hard.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we've seen an increase just, I mean, as, if any of you have watched the Belknap Marketplace, which is the old Belknap Mall. What's started to happen is you get the families moving in, or these individuals buying these homes, the more expensive homes, that want the services that they had when they lived in the city that don't exist here yet. So it is some benefit as far as filling out in the marketplace, but the types of businesses in there are changing. There are no longer a lot of retail businesses, there are a lot of service businesses, hair salons, you've got, chiropractor, healthcare. So the flavor's changing.
I didn't even think of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a different tax base based on those businesses? Or is it just based on the location, it's not based on the business type itself?
Well, you've got commercial versus residential. I mean, if they're, you've got your tax base that's your commercial zone, you've got the Belknap Mall and that swath there, that's mainly commercial.
So would a chiropractor pay more than, say?
He's a
Oh,
business.
that would be up to the mall owner, wouldn't it, what
Mall,
they
yeah,
pay for
what they-
rent?
what they pay
The
for
mall's
rent.
gonna be taxed for the value
For
of
the
the
value of the
mall,
mall.
but
Yeah.
what's inside, I would think, is up to the landlord.
They-
Does the type
yeah.
of business increase the value of the mall?
I don't think it
I
would.
don't-
I don't think it does,
I'm
but I
sorry, I'm
can't.
only asking because I'm curious.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's a learning experience
Yeah.
talking with town
Just
officials.
capital.
Yeah, I don't think that changed. I'm not the assessor.
Yeah, and that's, I say,
You know,
that's
I'm
kind
not-
of
Okay.
more the assessing flavor than.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah?
but yeah, we've
We're just
noticed that.
happy. Well, I think no matter what, whether there's a business in the mall or not, they still have to pay taxes on that building. That building is still assessed at whatever it is, whether there's someone in it or not. So I don't think that my first gut would be,
I'm just curious.
yeah, I don't know.
Other questions for us, or any additional questions?
I have a question.
All
I
right.
have one question, I remembered one I forgot. But the
Okay.
question, did you, then don't take this as I'm volunteering, because I'm not, but did you get people to fill your advisory
Oh,
committee
for your
positions?
budget?
Yeah.
We have a vacant position.
We have
Thank you
vacant
for filling it.
positions.
No, no.
Get that in the minutes, Greta.
In the entire time I've been here, we have not had a full,
Fact.
Because I
What
might
is
have
full?
somebody
Is it
that's
7?
interested in that, so I just wanted to.
That was like 7 people.
We've never
Six.
put a cap.
No, but that's still the max what we set, right, was 7? I
The
think?
original, when it was
Yeah,
established.
we've never had
was-
that.
yeah.
so
But-
we welcome.
We can add,
Oh, I think we have a couple openings on our budget committee too.
Okay.
Good
Yeah,
openings on
mine.
zoning board.
So
My
we
zoning
have-
board
Come on now.
alternates.
We have 2 names that are coming forward to the board this evening, and we
Nice.
also received another name today,
Good.
so
Oh,
we're
good.
hoping to have a 3-member advisory budget committee.
Mhm.
We've always had a minimum 2.
Yeah.
I think our largest number was 4 our first year.
yeah,
Pardon my ignorance, but what do they do? Like, what does the?
They actually sit around the table just like you folks are right now, and they're there when we go, from the first time we present the budget to the board.
So do they sit there and go through the line?
Yeah, they sit there and go through
And
it.
ask
the only thing
then-
that's not done is if there's any non-public discussions about
Yep.
positions or people, they would stay out of that.
Mhm.
But other than that, they're involved the whole
They're
stuff.
strictly advisory, so they don't have a vote on the budget, but the ideas and the questions that come out of the committee members are very helpful.
So in other words, where we, on our ballot will say, that this part of the budget, whatever it happens to be, is supported, by the budget committee as well as the selectmen, or it's not supported by the budget committee, but it is supported by the selectmen, you don't do that.
No, because you have a formal
Yeah.
budget committee,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
an advisory
It's not an
budget
advisory,
committee.
that's why it was set up that way,
Yeah.
got it.
next question,
Okay.
another question. So does the high school, because we'll start at the high school level, but I suppose it could go into the middle school too. Is there something in the curriculum in the high school to try to pull the attention of the older students into the local government and how the local government works, how the select board works, how the planning board works, how the school board works? Because we keep talking a lot about we need to pull the younger generations in so that they are prepared for this. What is there in the schools to, that would help bridge that gap, I guess?
So there's been some changes in legislature over the past few years, specifically focusing on civics education. So we're required, particularly by law, to make sure that we infuse civics education into our high school curriculum, middle school curriculum, and now elementary level curriculum. So we have that throughout the school district. To your question specific though, Sharon, about local government, that is discussed as part of civics education, but as for drawing them into it, the children in general, they make the choices as to how involved they want to get in the local. But they do get an understanding of what local government looks like, and that's part of the requirement.
Maybe it might, just a suggestion, to whomever is teaching that, to ask maybe a couple of the town people to come in for question and answer or whatever.
So you guys have a student member of your board, any chance?
Yes, so this year we have 2 high school representatives and 2 middle school representatives. The first meeting they're going to attend is the first meeting in October.
Well, I do want to compliment that we've had student members in the Conservation
I
Commission
was just gonna
the
say
past
that.
few years, and they have had some phenomenal ideas, and they've been very active in participating. And I know we have one vacant student member, but I believe our current student member has basically recruited someone else to join, which has been awesome. But they are, they come with some ideas, they're not afraid to participate, and it is a good way to get to know how, the Conservation Commission is an advisory commission. It's not, it's not quasi-judicial like my ZBA or anything like that, but it's a good way to get to see how the procedure, just everything from calling meetings to order, how the minutes work, everything, and getting a real life experience. But they also have some fabulous ideas. We've had some really wonderful students.
And active.
And very active, very active.
I would say the school's been the students have been very active throughout the village and everything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It could, just a thought too, as I was thinking, a lot of our seniors in particular have to do service projects, and I'm just wondering if, and I would have the same thing for Canterbury, do the students know there's an opportunity for students to serve in these different advisory capacities? Because
I know that's one thing, especially because the Conservation Commission does have student members. We have been pushing through Facebook and through community involvement and through the students themselves, talking to their peers.
yeah,
I know just recently, the Conservation Commission did have a work day just over here on the trails in the town forest.
Yeah.
And had a fair number of students show up to help, clean it up and just mow it and trim it. But they are active, and I know the commission has talked now.
I wonder if we
haven't-
can look into what other commission, because I didn't know you guys had student members.
Mhm.
I wonder if there's any other commissions that have
The
spots for
Heritage.
student members.
The Heritage Commission has
Mhm.
one.
And that's something we could probably advertise through our Facebook too.
yeah, and through the
And
high
yeah,
school.
please, if there's any opportunity for student voice on any of your commissions, committees, or work that's just volunteer work, just send that over to me so I can disperse
Absolutely.
that, because all of our middle school and high school students have
Well, I know the
their own
high
emails.
schoolers are required. My daughter graduated last year, so
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
getting those hours.
I'll be
in.
happy
Yeah.
to disseminate that information to our students.
Absolutely. Okay.
Anything else?
Like I told Mr. Tercey, if there's anything from my office through land use, if there's any questions that I can answer, he has my contact information, absolutely reach out. I'll
Great.
certainly, find out the answer for you, and I'm
Excellent.
always there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you,
We
everybody.
very much appreciate you
Yeah,
coming.
thank you for asking us.
I learned a lot about, in particular, accessory dwelling. There's a whole
If you have any more questions, I can read you the statute.
She has it memorized.
Oh, and they have
They're looking
1,200.
to increase it to 12.
Okay, so you have up to 1,200.
Yeah,
Canterbury
1250, and
right now
then, or if you have a larger home, 40% of the, yeah. And if the
Interesting.
moon is full and you see, you know.
Put a silver spoon underneath your pillow.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Next up is the staff handbook.
Thanks for coming.
Debbie provided information to us. I don't know if we have any questions for Debbie.
This is the amendment, oh, I gotta pull it up. This is the amendment to the,
Staff handbook.
I've read this 10 times, I still don't understand.
I actually think I do. I think I do.
I think you gave an example. Maybe somebody else was hired in December.
Yep.
So, they're hired in December, his first service credit year would be 22-23, year 2 would be 23-24.
So they're not getting it on their anniversary, they're getting it in July after their anniversary. So if you
Correct.
worked there a year in December, you wouldn't get vacation
Right.
time until July.
So you work a year and a half before you get
Right.
vacation.
So I just wanna make sure I understand now. I could have worked a year and a half and gotten 0 vacation days?
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah,
You were reading that correctly?
yes. So that's why we're looking to add service year and count the 6 months.
So now you'll start accruing after a year of service instead of.
But it'd still be, you know, it's still gonna be awarded as of July 1st, but, yeah. It's the same, it's similar to what we do with teachers. If we hire a teacher after the end of January, they don't get credit for that full year as a teacher, so they wouldn't move steps. But if they're hired before, then they would move.
Is this just going forward for new hires, or will it be backdated for hires that have happened recently that have not hit their year?
Backdated,
Okay.
yep, and actually this change would impact immediately 3 support staff members.
Okay.
We want to make sure that it's, when we look at it, we're looking at being fair for all employees, make sure that they're getting that benefit when it should be awarded to them, so
Right.
if it's voted tonight, it'll impact 3 employees immediately. They would actually see it in the next round of payroll with the additional days.
Which makes sense to me. Motion to amend the staff handbook to provide for awarding of service credit years for allocated vacation days.
Second.
Additional discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Buildings and grounds. Steve has provided us information in our packet. If we have any questions. Okay, we can recognize the update. Debbie,
Hello,
update.
it's budget season.
We know.
Mm.
We know, Debbie, thank you for,
Smiling.
I know.
I know, I love it. So that's the major update.
Okay, it's budget season.
Yeah, so we're gonna be starting soon, you'll be getting your information. And that rolls us right into the appointment of advisory budget committee members, which I provided in your packet. And as Michael did allude, we did get another request today from an Andrew Fournier from Canterbury, indicating that he would also be interested in serving on the committee.
Great. So we'd be appointed.
So, if somebody were to express an interest tomorrow or the day after,
Mhm.
are we still going to allow?
You have allowed it in the past.
I thought so.
Yep.
It's, I don't know, it's disappointing to only get 2 or 3 people when, I mean, anybody can go on Facebook and complain about the budget, say this or that, but we're looking for people to give feedback and
Yeah.
you can't get it. And I mean, I saw it in the paper, I saw it on Instagram, I saw it on the webpage, I've seen it in a bunch of
Yeah,
places, so.
the two towns put it out in their newsletters and it
Saw it
goes
in
on,
that.
you know, yeah. We get the word out, we try.
I think a lot of times people don't understand what's involved and don't understand how it works.
Yep.
And that's probably.
Yes,
what it's
so I think we ride that line between getting it out there versus writing a whole paragraph, but
Yeah.
it would be nice for people to know right off the bat that this is a commitment. And it is a commitment, but it's not that, not the same as being on the site itself.
Right, and we do have the charge of the committee on the website. You know, it would be difficult to put the whole charge out there, but.
But like, if I didn't know any better, would I know what my time commitment would be? Like how many meetings? Like, could we put in the future, I'm not saying right now, but in the future, you know, 6 scheduled meetings or something like that? Like,
Yeah,
just to
so
give people an idea of what the commitment
the
level
town of
is.
Belmont has on their website, this is a short-term commitment, underlined, with Tuesday evening meetings at 6:30 from November 15th through January 10th. So so, say that. So when you just said that, I was like, that's, so it's clear, you're making a commitment, but there's a period of time.
Yeah,
That's good.
That's a good idea.
Again, I don't know if that's gonna make a difference, but.
We
It
should
might.
get Jay and Heidi to give us a testimonial on their
Yeah.
experience of that.
True, yeah.
rate us.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
5-star, we'll do it
Oh.
again.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, Yelp reviews.
I've had somebody say, well, I don't know much about budgets, and it's like,
You-
it's a great opportunity to learn
Learn
about
about
the
the
school
budget.
district budget. We're not expecting people to come in and know everything.
Yeah.
Maybe you put it that way, we don't expect you to be a budget expert, we just expect you to provide your input.
And come have a good time.
Yeah. And leave a
Talking
5-star
budget,
review.
talking, I mean, Debbie's all smiles.
She's all amped up already.
Budget nodded.
Okay. Okay, so we would be appointing 3 members tonight.
Correct.
Motion to appoint Jay Grafton, Heidi Cheney, and Andrew Fournier
Yes.
to the advisory budget committee.
Second.
Additional discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay.
I actually have a question for Debbie on budget.
Okay.
Do we have opportunity for those of us who have last year's binders to recycle them for this year's paperwork?
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay,
Absolutely.
I will bring mine in.
I think I brought in like 3 years in a row once to Debbie. I don't need all these binders in my cabinet.
yeah, we recycle whatever comes back.
Okay,
You may wanna use it to compare,
I,
but,
so
Well,
I
I'll keep
I
the
can have all
content.
mine just for,
But,
yeah, yeah, you can bring the binder back.
That's what I do, I
Okay.
look at what we've done in the past.
Hmm.
things are so much better than 10 years ago.
Wow. Okay, next up, Robotics Grant. So you'll see the middle school applied for and was awarded the Robotics Grant of $14,850 for this year. Belmont High School are the same amount.
so those are increases from what they got.
They
last
are,
year.
because the application was submitted for the maximum amount we could get this year. They didn't fully fund it, but 15,000 was the maximum we could receive.
Well, they almost
Pretty
fully
close.
funded it.
Yeah,
That's great.
And so were the applications in previous years not requesting that full amount?
correct.
Right.
Okay.
And we don't need to have public hearings anymore.
No, the statute changed, so anything under $20,000 does not require a public hearing now.
Is this even up for action?
No, it's just information to let you know that we did get awarded the robotics grants.
Excellent.
Great. It's very exciting.
Very exciting. I bet you're excited as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because-
I made an announcement to the whole, to all the kids, and
Great.
we were all really excited.
So, memory serves me correctly, we budgeted money,
Mhm.
and then you got additional money, the grants were higher. So like, are you gonna
Correct.
do like some cool things with it this year?
The VRC kids, which is why I kind of wanted to know if your son was really going to do IQ. We do a signature event every season. Last year we did a signature event. A signature event is it's bigger than a regional championship, but it's smaller than a world championship. So there's 80 to 100 robots from all around the world, mostly United States. The signature events, we did WPI last year, which is in, please forgive me if I say this wrong, Worcester? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We did WPI last year, and this year the kids really wanted to do the Sugar Rush signature event in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So we've been putting together the paperwork for that to get that approved. So we are sending our kids to larger championships. We're gonna take advantage of the funding to get whatever supplies that we need. VRC, also just to let you know, VRC, we're helping the new IQ coach. So we have kids, I'm going down every Tuesday, and a couple of our kids are going down every Tuesday to help Mr. Friend get organized and get ready for the season, which is gonna start in 2 weeks.
So does the budget money and the grant money go into like a club account?
So no, what happens is the budget money is in the general fund. And we have the amount that's for the middle school and the amount for the high school. Those were put in for supplies, and the board had authorized us to transfer what we needed to for dues and fees, because we weren't sure how that was gonna work. The federal grants that we just received are clearly federal grant monies. So there's specific things that we can use that money for. It's the same as what we could last year, but increased amounts for some of the stuff. They do put caps on stipends, they put caps on t-shirts, but equipment and dues and transportation, there's a cap.
The reason I asked is I'm kind of curious, if, say, that they're getting more money this year, if they don't spend it all, can that?
It's gone,
It's gone?
yeah,
There's no rollover?
nope,
Mm-mm.
mm-mm,
Oh.
no.
1 year.
And the grants have to be done by May 30th. So the robotics has to be done. The general fund is done by June 30th.
What if they decided they wanted to do something bigger 2 years from now and they wanted to start planning? Can, like, the French club or the basketball team or whatever, they all have their own accounts. Can our co-curriculars have those?
So there is a robotics club at the high school that was started several years ago. And that had come to the board and that had been approved at the time. So there's a robotics at both the high school and the middle school. Because they didn't get full funding based on what they requested, they have had support from businesses, and they'll get donations. They'll get money from the Tanger Club, and those go in, and that has been used to help supplement some of the equipment. If they still get those contributions, those will go into that club, the student activity, that will roll forward.
Okay.
And what we've done, and the practice that I have put into place is, we use the grant money first.
Yeah.
Once the grant money is done, then we go and look towards.
So that those club monies don't get
Right,
spent
we
right
don't
off the
deplete
bat.
those first, yeah.
Right.
Unless it's something that the club's doing that the grant can't pay for.
Makes sense. All right, thank you. Very exciting news, so. Michael, competency-based grading and reporting discussion.
Yeah, I wanted to just provide a report to the board just as a follow-up. I know this has been somewhat of a standing agenda item. So, as I mentioned to the board, I want to take the board's concerns and bring it to the administrative team and put together a preliminary action plan. In our initial discussion, we've met twice, and the initial discussion, we basically put those concerns into 3 categories: misinformation, misunderstanding, and items that we need to address. So I wanted to make sure that I laid that out for the board, just to continue the conversation. Around the misinformation piece, you know, it's been stated around this table that the 4-point scale impedes our students from getting into the colleges and universities they would like to get into, particularly out-of-state colleges and universities. So our school counseling department keeps track of where our students are going, particularly the schools that they are attending once they leave. So there's a list of the 3 years of the schools out of state and in state that our schools are, that our students are attending. That's just one layer. Those are where they are attending. That doesn't necessarily indicate all of the schools that they got accepted to. I spoke to one parent on this list. Their child is going to one school that's listed here, but they were accepted into 5 other schools. So this is just one layer. And then there was also a concern that impedes our students getting into the military, and our 2023 graduating class, 5% of our students are going into the military, which I think is the largest out of the numbers over the past 3 years. So I just want to provide the board with that information, and also I know that Mark had stated at one of our meetings specifically that there were 3 colleges and universities. I only spoke to 2, but Boise State in Idaho, as well as Northwest Nazarene, circular file applications that are coming on a 4-point scale. So I called the admissions officers there and spoke with them specifically. Come to find out is that they take all transcripts, regardless of the grading scale that a student has on their transcript, and they transfer it over to a 4-point scale. They use a 4-point scale to determine academic scholarships, as well as they grade on a 4-point scale. So I just want to make sure that the board is having accurate information when we continue this discussion, particularly for some of the items that have been spoken around this table. So those are 2 items that we wanted to make sure you had information about. And I think that's part of it, is really just making sure people have the right information. Because I think that is some of the root cause of some of the issues, is people just don't have the right information. And that's what we can improve on, particularly around public relations piece on what we are currently doing and have been doing for years, and why we decided to move in this direction around personalized teaching and learning. That's where the misunderstanding comes in. We need to refresh our messaging about why we moved in this direction in the first place. And determining the best means to do that is something that we need to discuss, by all means. And
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You mentioned, we know kids that got accepted to colleges where they're going, and that some get accepted to more than one, obviously. Do we track the ones that they don't go to, that they get accepted to?
no,
Can we?
we could start, I believe. It's just
The
hard
only
to
reason
get
I
that
ask
information.
is, we could have students that get accepted to Ivy League schools that decide from a financial perspective, they just can't do it. They'd love to go to Yale, but they're gonna stay local. And I still think that it's important that we know that students are getting accepted to, high-end schools like Ivy Leagues.
Yeah, and you can see on this list, there's some very competitive schools that our students are getting into.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Do you know what freshman, I forget what it's called, but I know in UMass Lowell, because my friend's director of student studies, and he's had local Lakes Region students go to UMass Lowell with this grading system, and they have to go 5 weeks early. And there's a whole program. I know University of Wyoming, when you get in there, from this, it's the Northeast, it's not just Shaker Regional, it's the Northeast. They go 5 weeks early to the university, and they have to basically teach them studying, time management, everything that we're not doing in our schools in the Northeast. Did you see if any of these people who got into these things have to do this 3 or 4 weeks early before school?
I'm not aware of anyone that has to go in early, quite honestly. I think we would have that information, but.
I mean, I can get letters from these people I know who have these director positions at different universities.
Right.
And have them emailed to the board members.
Yeah. And I think what you're referring to, Jeff, is that all schools have some sort of remedial programming prior to the start of the school year. So if a student is coming out of a school system that might need remedial classes so that they're successful going into their first semester, they offer that type of programming. Not all schools do, but some do. If they see based on a transcript that a student might need additional support.
They do math placement tests at the
So
beginning.
that they will come in early, so schools do offer that. It's really like a remedial intervention so that you're successful going into your first year. I'm not aware of our students that have to go through that type of program.
I was just wondering, that's a question you can ask them.
Yeah.
Did they have to do something before?
Yeah?
Yeah, and I think a conversation with our alumni is really important. Like, we get a really good understanding as to how successful they feel they are when they go into their freshman year. And what's really interesting is that the percentage of students that are actually going into a four-year program or even a two-year program has decreased significantly I shouldn't say significantly, but has decreased over the years, because students and families are understanding that, first of all, they can make a good living off of a high school degree, particularly if they come out of the trades. And students and families are savvy enough to understand that the return on investment might not weigh out the benefit of going to a four-year college, because it's very expensive. So there's a shift in the dynamics of what's happening
A
with
lot of
our
people
young,
going to trade school.
with our young
Yeah.
people.
You can go 4 years in an electrician school, you come out, you're making more than a
Mhm.
4-year
Yeah.
graduate of a college.
Yeah, I actually listened to a presentation this morning, and in the past, it was around 95% of high school graduates going into a four-year or even a two-year program outside of school. It's down to 55%.
Well, who couldn't afford it?
Well, that's the piece, so you're gonna pay all this
They're out of
money, you go to
control.
this, there's benefits both ways. You just, families are really thinking, and students are really thinking, what's the return on investment at this point? And you're seeing with the decline in the percentage that, young people can make a good living with a high school degree.
Do HVAC.
And that's why, post-secondary institutions are struggling for enrollments.
So Jeff, I just looked it up real quickly, and UMass Lowell has, it's called the River Hawk Scholars Academy.
Yeah.
And it's when students are invited, but
Is
it's
it-
not, there's not like
Oh,
a
it's not
specific
mandatory?
criteria.
Does Eric do so? I don't know if you look for him.
I can, but, so it's actually kind of neat. It's like a success program for incoming freshmen.
Yeah.
So it teaches them like
Yeah.
how to be successful in college, but,
The way he explained it to me 2 years ago, he goes, we highly recommend the ones who,
oh yeah, there's a cost to it.
yeah, there is a
Yeah.
cost, but we highly recommend it.
Yeah. I think it's great that they do those things
Yeah.
to make sure kids are successful going in their first semester, because that first semester is really a determinant.
Because I know we're focusing on grading, my problem is not really with the grading, it's with something else, but we're focused on the grading for now.
So we put together the items that need to be addressed. I want to make sure I put a list together of the acronyms that are throughout this chart, because educators, we talk in acronyms, so I want to make sure that you had all the acronyms listed out here. And then action plan items, again, this is a preliminary plan based on 2 conversations with the full administrative team. First action plan item is developing a portrait of a learner, and our strategic planning that we've been talking about around this table. Portrait of a learner is going to be a requirement, particularly at the high school, for our NEASC accreditation. So we will have to go through that process, through the accreditation process, but it's a good process to go through in general. And that's a collaborative process involving various stakeholders to really put forward the vision of what we would like our students to have and be able to do in order to be successful when they leave our system. And that doesn't have to be extremely detailed, but it's something that you pull stakeholders together to develop that portrait of a learner. And then strategic planning, we've been through, and we're looking forward to going through that as a school district as well. And at any point, feel free to jump in with any questions.
I have a question, but it's about the strategic plan. When was the last time we did one again?
It was back in 2006.
And it was- it's
23,
assuming it's on-
2017.
Okay, I'm assuming it's on the website.
Yep.
Because I would love if we as a board reviewed it, the last one that was done, especially like any recommendations, things like that, see what was done, if there was any missed opportunities, if we're seeing a repeat of things
Mhm.
that were back done.
Yeah, that's gonna be part of the review process, and the 2 consultants that I spoke with that potentially might help facilitate that process. The question comes, what do you wanna do with your current plan? I mean, it's not current because it expired in 22, basically the end of 22. But there was a lot of work that went into developing that, and there's vision statements in there that could flow into the portrait of a learner. So I don't necessarily feel we're gonna have to do a complete revamp. It's just a matter of looking at the plan that we put into place. It involved a lot of stakeholders in putting that plan together and just bringing that back to life. Sort of getting a theme here, sort of refresh, reboot, bring it back to life.
I think I have a general question about all of it, but it relates specifically to the first one. There's no timelines, and so I understand things don't happen overnight. I just, there's the strategic direction, the portrait of a learner, the collaborate with community members. So I just think, for me, to really look at this, I'm like, we're missing that
The timeline.
piece.
I agree 100%. It's just a matter of, again, this is a preliminary plan. This is sort of a template that we're gonna go with and develop greater detail on. This was established out of two
meetings.
1.5 hour meetings. So-
And then the other thing in general is I would like, I know you didn't ask that, but to pull out some specific things related to families and student understanding related to our grading system. It's in here, so I can dig here, collaborate with K-12 stakeholders and collaborate with community stakeholders under Portrait of a Learner, and it's things on established baseline knowledge of competency-based education. But then, but there's nothing specific, and I know it's 2 meetings, but I'm missing that piece because we have heard, even from us, a lot about, I appreciate the teacher stuff, but I'm worried about how we're communicating out, like right now.
Yeah, as I said, Michelle, we have to put more detail
Yeah.
to this. This is a beginning
Yep.
plan that we need to build off of. One of the things that I'm really looking forward to is getting student voice involved.
Mhm.
I know that our school board reps, particularly at the high school, have already indicated that they want to make sure that they're part of the discussion, because they have ideas that they want to share, they have their opinions that they want to share, and I think that's a very important voice around the table when it comes to what we're discussing here. So
Mhm.
it's gonna be in the works, it's just not outlined here in detail at this point.
So I think, Michelle, where you're kind of going, so like if you look at the misunderstanding, and it talks about, the why,
Mhm.
and I'm assuming at some point there'll be like, maybe like some sort of action items for that section, like on how it's communicated out, et cetera. Cause yeah, you see the plan in here, and this is, I think, a really good start. But we don't see like the deliverables at the end. And I don't think we'd see that yet.
Yeah, and one thing that kind of came to light that I actually had no idea how many failures we were having.
Correct.
Could there be, at each grading period, could we get a sense of how many kids are gonna be approaching that credit recovery, or how many kids are, just to make sure that we don't find ourselves with 90 kids needing to
Yeah,
be
so.
in credit recovery again?
Yeah, Jill, absolutely. I think we need to provide more data to the board so that you have an understanding as to where we are, being proactive in that manner, so yes. Yeah, absolutely. Keep going through this. So the increased professional development opportunities, that's specific to new staff. It says here before school starts, so we're talking about, we do a new teacher orientation. That is more the logistics of coming into the district and what you need to know. We want to bring our new staff in, particularly at least a day prior, that fully focuses on our curriculum as well as our, learning about the proficiency scales that are in place in our grading practices as well. So giving more emphasis prior to coming into the school district. More importantly, in speaking with our administrative team, we do have new staff that are coming in that actually came here specifically because of our teaching and learning, grading and reporting practices, and they're familiar with it. So there could be some new staff that aren't so familiar, but we also have staff that are very familiar with what we currently have in place. Review and revitalize proficiency scales, that's an ongoing work, and that's through professional learning communities as well. Surveying the new staff members, again, this was assessing where are our new staff members with competency-based education in general. And that's based on getting their feedback, but personalizing their professional development if they need to. And then we do have a strong mentor-mentee program in our district that helps with that as well. I already talked about the restructuring, the new teacher orientation. This establishing the baseline knowledge of competency-based education. I know that we had a survey that was put out by the Teachers Association, and there was some feedback that came there. I just want to emphasize that was a small percentage of our teachers. It was 40 teachers out of 60 plus teachers that had access, that were provided the survey. We actually want to get feedback from all of our teachers and staff in general through conversations, and be able to note their feedback, not on a survey style, but through what's called a World Cafe style. That's where you basically have groups of teachers and staff that go around a table. Each table has a different prompt or question. There's large pads of paper as well as sticky notes just to write down their ideas and brainstorms, answering that prompt and answering that question, so that they're conversing about it, and then we gather that information, bring that information back, and I'd love to share that with the board once we have it. I would see a similar process being done, and that's not facilitated by an administrator. It's all self-facilitated basically, because you get different results if you're in a staff meeting and your administrator is asking you, so what's your opinion on this, compared to meeting with your peers and providing feedback. I see a similar approach with families as well as with students. Have a conversation about it, gather the information that comes out of that conversation. Let's see. And then clearly we already talked about this reviewed policy IKA. We have a process in place for that. But I want to utilize our shared leadership model that I explained to the board a few board meetings back, in bringing that policy through the various stakeholders, starting with our district support team, then going to our building leadership teams, then to grade levels or departments, and also getting students involved with their thoughts on that policy, and be able to bring a recommendation back to the internal policy committee for any potential changes. And then we have in here review ALMA as a learning management system. So I know that there's concerns around Empower specifically as our learning management system. You know, the word clunky has been used. We want to start with seeing what the capabilities we have through ALMA as our student information system. Does it have the potential to be a learning management system, so that we're accessing one platform for both student information as well as a learning management system? We're starting with ALMA, although I know that there are others out there like Canvas and so forth that we might potentially explore, but we just have to make sure that we're utilizing what is user-friendly, but also provides us the management system that we need.
Merrimack Valley uses ALMA for everything, and I've talked to some parents who are not tech savvy, and they rave about how easy to use it is.
Yeah, so that is true, particularly on the grading and reporting piece. I'm not aware of a module in ALMA that you can actually store your curriculum, your proficiency scales, your learning targets, your rubrics, as well as tracking the learning progression of each individual student as they work their way K to 12. Empower does that. So ALMA continuously is improving and adding more modules to their student information system. I think it will get there. I just don't know if they're there yet. But ideally, in my opinion, it'd be great to be able to work off of one platform that meets all of our needs. And then the Empower Access and Informational Letter, again, a refresh. We want to send out to parents like we did in the past. Here's how you log in, here's your username, password, and an informational letter that goes along with that. People I know aren't even aware that we have tutorials on our website for accessing Empower that Silas, our Director of Curriculum Instruction, did in the past, and it really walks parents through Empower. I don't think people know that, or they need to be reminded of that, and I think we need to update those as well, so.
Can you also, this is, I know a question that came up previously in, actually, an athletic piece. But if we're gonna do a refresh of Empower and how parents access grades and all of that, we should also talk about what's the obligation of the teacher to put the grades in a
Yes.
timely fashion.
Absolutely.
Because that came up at the high school athletic information night where parents are monitoring and they said, well, how do we monitor if we don't have grades in there?
Yeah.
And so they asked what the policy is, and I don't actually know what, well, it's not, I don't know what it is, but what is the expectation of the teachers to get grades in there? So I just think we have to be ready, because if families, as they should be going in, make sure teachers are putting grades in timely. And I'm hoping within the schools, they have definitions of timely.
I don't know if that's necessarily formalized, but I agree that it should be formalized so that everybody's on the same expectation as to when those grades should be put in, based on the different assignments.
Right, I just,
Like you said, like the more parents get accustomed to whatever system we use, if the data isn't there, it's gonna just create more fires.
right.
I agree.
So as part of the withdrawal study committee, when we were looking at other schools, I decided to add how they grade to what I was looking at. And I was surprised that Concord and Bow do the 1 through 4 grading scale all the way through high school. So I know some parents in those towns, and I was gonna reach out to them because they haven't complained at all. It's not one of the common complaints you hear about those schools. So just like how it's communicated to them, how they understand it. And, because I thought that might be a good way to look at other districts that are doing it too, and how they're,
Explaining it.
yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Then I went down the rabbit hole of their policies and all that fun stuff.
So as I said, what's presented in front of you today is a preliminary plan with some action strategies in there. We'll continue to have the conversation. I know that there is a desire to put some timelines to it, and I think that's important as well, but this is a starting point for us. What's gonna happen in the near future is the conversations with the staff at staff meetings. The goal is to develop the questions and/or prompts at our first district support team meeting, which is Monday, and then bring those to each school's staff meetings in October. So I'm hoping after October, I'll have some data to bring back to the board with some information from our staff.
I think the, one thing that it's here but not here is the piece around a theme that the high school is addressing with like late work but also the skills related to, I guess we bundle it in habits of work, like being on time, being held accountable, kind of deadlines, long projects, homework. So I would like to know what staff members think of kind of, I don't wanna forget the habits of work, because that is part of grading and reporting. I should know, but I don't exactly know how that's factored in on a transcript that goes out for the high school, but some of that time management stuff is really key to some of the stuff, the study skills, those types of things.
Right.
So I hope that, I guess what I wanna say is I hope that that's in there, cause it's relating to why potentially we have failures.
Yes, and that's part of the discussion.
Okay.
And I know that that's part of the discussion around eligibility, particularly for co-curriculars, habits of work. There was a specific intent of breaking out habits of work with academics when we moved in this direction of how we report now, because you want to know how a student is being successful with their academics. It's about their learning. And they might be slackers, yet they have the knowledge and the skill base on the content side. So your habits of work might reflect not hitting those deadlines and so forth. However, they still have the content and the skill set to be successful in the academic side of things. That's why they were separated originally. But now it's a matter of making sure that we're emphasizing the importance of that, particularly when they go out into the workforce. And there are deadlines that they have to meet along the way. That's shifting as well, though, so to a degree. And particularly when we start talking about 4-point scale, people are evaluated by their supervisors on a 4-point scale, you know? So it's, those, that, to the
Right, so
point,
you
Michelle,
could
those are
wrap
part
it,
of-
you could wrap it in, is what you're
Absolutely,
saying.
yeah.
Yeah, because I just think, I don't know what it teaches us, like, if I'm late with something, we don't get a grant, period.
Yep,
Like,
absolutely.
doesn't matter that I overslept, it doesn't matter how awesome my grant is.
Right.
I either submit it or I don't, period. So I just wanna make sure we're factoring those pieces into these discussions.
And I think, also think what's important is to make sure that the discussion continues to happen around the board so that you're part of the conversation and part of, just as I mentioned in the report, solution-based.
Okay.
All right?
What questions, additional questions do we have for Michael, do you want?
Can we get a folder in your board packets, but for this, where we can put the documentation that we have? Because I'm assuming we're gonna talk about this again, and this way we can kind of refer back to it instead of digging into previous meeting minutes.
So any reports that are reflective
Yeah,
of competency-based education?
So we can kind of gather it all for the conversation.
I have no idea why I'm looking at you, Debbie, on
I
whether or
am
not
too.
that can happen. I'm like, so Debbie,
Kim
Sure, Kim will
establishes-
do it.
Kim establishes that.
as the superintendent, Debbie?
Yes, I'll have Kim do it.
Thank you. Yeah, even like the update for tonight, like that
You
has
can
good
put that
information,
in.
yeah.
And we can put our summary,
The concerns.
the concerns that
Yep.
we had should go in there.
So it all goes into
right?
one place, it's a great idea.
It's a great
We
idea.
can make that work.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, it stays on the agenda. I don't know where it is on the horizon, but it remains on the agenda. Oh, next up is on the horizon. I didn't know that when I said it.
So I'll reach out to Ken Folsom in Canterbury to see if they're available either on the 10th or the 24th. They wouldn't be on the 10th though, correct?
10th would be a problem, right?
Well, so the 10th, it's the planning board, so
I'm assuming that there's a
Kent
BOS
wouldn't be
rep.
able to get there, so
Right.
we should, we love talking, we should switch.
I'll see if they're available for the 24th.
Okay.
And we definitely need to have the resolutions on there for the 10th, so
10th.
Randy's prepared going into the 14th.
What's the budget development piece?
That's gonna be your first look at the budget.
Hopefully.
I was gonna say, is that realistic? Last year we had to bump it a week.
We might need to bump it. We'll try
Boy.
not to.
You're getting glared at. I just wanna point that out.
See that?
He shows up with an egg on her head, you know what happens.
I know.
Although you are the superintendent, so I guess you
am.
could make that decision.
I can. I'll never hear the end of that one, will I?
Okay. Okay, so the 10th right now is first
Mhm.
look at the budget. So probably.
I'm looking at you, ready.
Just plant the seed.
So, yeah, so we have the
So it should
10th,
be fine.
and then the 17th, we're supposed to meet with administration. 'Cause last year, we bumped it all. So, we're together every night in October, every Tuesday, not every night. That would be a lot.
All very nice people.
So,
Yes, but
so
as
just
a
to point
family.
out, we do have a budget work session on Halloween. So,
That's not gonna work.
so, cause some people have young kids
I have
and,
a 3-year-old.
yeah.
I have a party.
What are you dressing up as, Jay?
What am I dressing up as? Nothing. So,
So we can talk about, seeing what we can do to flex that. So, thank you, actually Greta pointed that out, so it's a good catch, cause now we have time to find another date, so. Okay, anything else, I don't know if that was on the horizon or not, but. Okay. Volunteer list.
Very long one.
Mhm.
make the motion to accept the volunteer list with the noted exceptions.
Second.
No one's gonna take it.
I know.
Randy.
It's been us all night.
Okay.
No one
I
was
don't
gonna
want-
take it from you.
Sean can get pretty quick.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Internal policy, I know we had the first reading at the last meeting, people had questions answered, so all are up for action. I will note there was a typo on letter B for DID, it should say fixed asset as opposed to assess.
Assets, yeah.
Assets,
Mhm.
fixed assets. So, I think we can approve in one bundle,
Good.
unless
Motion.
there are edits. The motion would have to be, well, can either be separate or all together.
Good.
Motion to approve internal policy updates to policies DIA, DID, DJ, and DJE with noted changes.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Okay. Appendix B, which is in your non-public packet. Okay, so there's 3. We can approve them in public if there are no things of a personnel nature.
Make the motion to accept the Appendix B nominations.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, motion carries. Next up, we're at public communication and correspondence. Any members of our public? No? Okay. We have one thing on the agenda from public. Right?
We can do that in public.
We can do this in public.
Motion to approve the September 12th non-public meeting minutes.
Second.
You guys are on fire.
Any discussion? That
Just one typo.
Oh, I see it. Wrong last name on line
Me.
22.
Hey, I didn't take
I
that.
know.
You did Robert.
Yes.
I shall amend my motion to state with your changes.
Second again.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, I abstain, because I wasn't here. Okay?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed, anyone want to say? Okay.